The desert was quiet except for the wind that carried fine grains of sand across the endless dunes. The sun hung high, burning down on the Valley of Kings where the tombs of pharaohs had rested for thousands of years. But on this day something unusual was happening. A group of archaeologists had gathered around a site that had only recently been uncovered. Among them was Dr. Amir, a man in his early 40s, known for his calm nature and endless curiosity. By his side worked Lena, a younger researcher with sharp eyes and steady hands. Their team had been digging for weeks, following faint signs in old records that spoke of a hidden chamber never touched by grave robbers. At first it had seemed like a normal excavation. They had found broken pottery, small tools, and markings that matched ancient Egyptian design. But then their instruments began to react strangely. A scanner had shown a hollow space beneath the ground that did not match the usual stone structure of a tomb. Amir wiped the sweat from his brow as he looked at the ground where his workers had finally uncovered a massive slab. Unlike the carved entrances of known tombs, this slab was smooth, almost polished, and covered in strange symbols. "This is no ordinary door," Amir whispered as he bent closer. His fingers traced one of the markings. It was shaped like a circle with 3 lines crossing through it. The design did not match any hieroglyph he had studied before. Lena crouched beside him. "Do you think it belongs to another culture?" she asked. Amir shook his head. "It is too well hidden inside the valley. No outsider could have placed this here without being noticed by the people of that time. This must have meant something important to the pharaohs." The workers stood back nervously. Some of them whispered in Arabic, warning each other not to touch the sealed door. They spoke of old legends, of curses that would fall on anyone who disturbed the resting places of the kings. One older worker, with lines carved deep into his face, said in a trembling voice, "The pharaohs did not seal this with stone. They sealed it with fear. Leave it closed." But Amir was not the kind of man to step away from knowledge. He had spent his life chasing the mysteries of the past. He placed his hand flat against the stone. The surface felt cold, much colder than the desert heat around them. "Lena," he said, "bring the scanner again." She hurried back to their equipment and returned with the handheld device. As she pointed it at the slab, the screen showed something unexpected. Instead of solid stone, the scanner revealed a dense layer with a faint glow behind it, as if energy still pulsed inside after thousands of years. "This should not be possible," Lena said, her voice shaking. "Nothing this old should still be active." Amir's heart pounded. If the readings were correct, they were standing at the edge of something far greater than a forgotten tomb. He thought about the stories passed down through centuries, of gods who came from the sky, of rulers who claimed to walk among the stars. Could it be that the pharaohs had hidden something that proved those tales were more than myth? That night, as the desert cooled and the stars appeared overhead, Amir sat outside the excavation tent and stared at the slab in silence. The camp was quiet, but he could not rest. The sealed door seemed to call to him, as if waiting for someone to uncover its purpose. Lena joined him, carrying a lantern. "You have not eaten," she reminded him. "I am not hungry," Amir replied. His eyes never left the slab. "Do you feel it, Lena? It is as if the door is alive. I cannot explain it, but it does not belong to this time." She nodded slowly. "It feels different. I touched it earlier, and it was colder than ice. How can stone stay like that under the desert sun?" Amir finally looked at her. "This is why we came here. Not for gold or treasures, but for truth. If this door hides what I think it does, we may change history forever." The next morning, the team began preparing machines to try to open the slab. They set up drills and cutters, the kind normally used to break through hardened stone. But as the blades touched the surface, sparks flew and the machines shut down. The door did not crack, not even a scratch appeared. It was as if the material was harder than any metal they knew. Frustration spread among the workers, but Amir only grew more determined. He studied the strange symbols again. They seemed almost alive in the sunlight. "Perhaps this is not meant to be broken," he said. "Perhaps it must be opened." The words hung in the air. The workers exchanged uneasy glances, but Amir stepped closer. He placed his palm against one of the circles carved into the slab. Nothing happened. He pressed harder, and still nothing changed. Lena, watching him carefully, hesitated before stepping forward. She placed her hand on another symbol, shaped like a triangle. For a brief second the symbol glowed faintly under her skin, then faded again. Amir's eyes widened. "Do that again," he urged. She pressed her hand once more, but the glow did not return. Still, something about the door had stirred. The air around them seemed to hum faintly, almost too soft to hear, but enough to make their skin tingle. Amir's heart raced. The sealed door was not just a piece of stone. It was something else, something waiting. And for the first time in his life, he felt that the ancient stories of the pharaohs might be more real than anyone had dared to believe. The chamber beyond the door remained a mystery, but Amir knew one thing. Whatever lay hidden behind it was not meant for ordinary eyes. Humanity was about to uncover a truth older than any empire, and he and Lena were standing at the edge of it. The morning sun painted the desert gold as Amir stood before the sealed slab once more. His eyes were heavy from lack of sleep, but his heart carried the fire of determination. The strange humming sound from yesterday had not left his ears. It was faint, like the whisper of wind through a cavern, yet it felt alive. Lena joined him, carrying her notebook. "The machines are useless," she reminded him. "We tried drills, lasers, cutters. Nothing works. This door does not break. It only responds when touched." Amir nodded. "That means it was built to be opened in a certain way. The pharaohs did not lock this forever. They wanted someone to find it, but only the right person." The workers stood back from the slab, their faces pale with fear. Some had already packed their belongings, refusing to go near the strange structure again. One of them muttered, "This is not a tomb. It is a warning. Leave it closed." But Amir's voice was calm and steady. "This is not the work of men. This is older, or perhaps greater. And we are here to understand, not to run." He turned back to Lena. "Try again. Place your hand on the triangle." She hesitated but obeyed. Her palm pressed against the carved shape. This time the glow returned, stronger than before, and a thin line of light spread across the surface of the slab. Gasps rose from the workers, and even Amir stepped back in awe. The glowing line stretched, connecting symbol to symbol until the whole slab shone with a soft golden light. A low rumble filled the air, not from the ground but from the stone itself. Then, with no sound of grinding or breaking, the massive door slid backward as if it weighed nothing. Behind it was not stone or sand, but a corridor made of smooth metal. The walls gleamed faintly, as though polished yesterday, not thousands of years ago. Thin lines of blue light ran along the ceiling, guiding their eyes deeper inside. Amir's breath caught in his throat. This is not Egyptian," he whispered. Lena's eyes widened. "It is technology. This should not exist here." Cautiously, they stepped inside. The air was cool, clean, and carried no trace of dust despite being sealed for centuries. Their footsteps echoed softly against the metallic floor. The corridor stretched far ahead, and along the walls stood figures that looked like statues. At first glance they resembled soldiers carved from stone, tall with long helmets and armor that glinted faintly in the dim light. Their faces were hidden, but their stances were rigid, as if standing guard for eternity. Lena shivered. "Do you think they are statues?" Amir studied them closely. "Perhaps, but they seem too perfect. Look at the joints in their arms. They are not carved. They are built. The statues stood silent, unmoving, yet their presence was heavy. The team moved past them carefully, their voices lowered to whispers as though afraid to disturb the guardians. Farther down the corridor, the energy on their scanners grew stronger. The readings spiked so high that Lena had to adjust the device. "It is not possible," she said. "Whatever is powering this place has lasted for thousands of years." At the end of the passage, they entered a vast chamber. The ceiling was curved like the inside of a dome, and the walls glowed faintly with shifting lights. Stars danced across the surface, not painted but projected, moving slowly as though the chamber itself was a map of the heavens. In the center stood a massive structure. It resembled a sarcophagus, yet it was not stone. Its surface was metal, covered with glowing lines that pulsed gently like veins of light. Unlike any coffin Amir had seen, it seemed alive. The workers froze at the sight, fear written across their faces. One whispered, "This is not the resting place of a man. It is something else." Amir walked closer, his steps slow and cautious. He could feel a soft vibration in the floor, as if the sarcophagus pulsed like a heartbeat. "The pharaohs sealed this away because it was too powerful," he said quietly. "But why leave it here, in the Valley of Kings? Why hide it beneath their tombs?" Lena looked up at the dome of stars. Perhaps it was their greatest treasure. Not gold, not jewels, but knowledge of the heavens. Her words echoed in the chamber. Amir thought of the ancient stories told on temple walls, of gods who descended from the sky and taught men how to build, how to rule. Could those stories be memories of real beings? As he touched the glowing lines on the sarcophagus, the dome above responded. The stars shifted, rearranging themselves into patterns that matched constellations known today. Then the image moved beyond Earth's skies, showing distant systems, strange planets, and what looked like ships sailing between them. Lena gasped. "It is a map of the universe." Amir nodded slowly. His heart was filled with awe and fear at the same time. If this is true, the pharaohs knew much more than we ever imagined. They were not only rulers of men. They were guardians of secrets from the stars. The chamber fell silent again, except for the faint hum of the sarcophagus. The explorers stood surrounded by the mysteries of an age when men might have walked with beings from beyond the sky. Amir turned to his team. "We have crossed a line. We are no longer only studying history. We are standing at the edge of something far greater. What lies beyond this chamber will change what we know of humanity itself." And though the sealed door had opened, Amir understood one truth clearly. What they had uncovered was not simply the past of Egypt. It was a doorway to something waiting, something that had been asleep for thousands of years. The explorers stood frozen in the vast chamber, their eyes lifted to the dome above. The stars projected across the curved ceiling moved slowly as though alive. They twinkled and shifted into new patterns, creating constellations that stretched far beyond the sky of Earth. Dr. Amir could hardly believe what he was seeing. "This is not art," he whispered. "It is a living map." Lena stepped closer, her notebook held tight in her hands. She traced one constellation with her finger. "These stars, they match the night sky we know. Look, there is Orion, and there is Sirius. But here," she pointed to a cluster far away, "this is not a constellation from Earth's view. These are stars only seen through telescopes." Amir's heart raced. That means whoever built this chamber had knowledge far beyond the pharaohs. This is a map of the universe itself. The workers stayed near the entrance, afraid to walk further into the chamber. The air was too still, too strange. Their whispers echoed off the metal walls. One muttered, "This is not a tomb. This is a temple of the sky." Amir ignored their fear and moved toward the massive object at the center, the sarcophagus of metal covered in glowing lines. It pulsed faintly as if it had a heartbeat. He placed his palm lightly on its surface. The glow brightened, and the stars above shifted again. The dome ceiling transformed. Now it showed not only constellations but moving pictures. Great ships shaped like crescent moons sailed between stars. Tall beings with human-like forms but glowing eyes stood beside men wearing the crowns of pharaohs. Armies marched under banners that carried symbols Amir did not recognize. Lena gasped. It is a story. The stars are telling us a history. The explorers watched as the images unfolded. The tall beings arrived on Earth in ancient times. They offered wisdom to the pharaohs, teaching them how to build, how to govern, how to look to the sky. But the pictures also showed conflict. Other beings, shaped like shadows with insect-like forms, appeared from the darkness of space. The ships clashed, beams of light cut across the heavens, and worlds burned in silence. The scene changed again. The tall beings stood with human rulers. They gave them tools of light, perhaps weapons or knowledge, and together they drove back the insect-like enemy. At last, one figure dressed in golden armor lay down inside the sarcophagus, and the stars above dimmed, as if a great era had ended. The vision faded, and once more the chamber returned to silence. Amir stepped back, his voice unsteady. This is proof. The pharaohs were not only kings. They were part of something greater, a story that stretched beyond Earth itself. Lena touched the edge of the sarcophagus with trembling fingers. If this being is still here, sealed for thousands of years, what if it wakes? What would it say to us? The thought sent a shiver through the team. The workers muttered prayers, some refusing to look at the glowing coffin. One of them whispered, "We should seal this place again before it is too late." But Amir's eyes burned with determination. No. This is not something to fear. It is something to learn. Humanity has always asked if we are alone. Here lies the answer. Lena nodded slowly, though unease lingered on her face. She opened her notebook and sketched the patterns of stars. "Look here," she said. "Some of these constellations show places we cannot reach yet. They are too far away, but the map marks them clearly as if they are destinations." Amir leaned closer. His mind raced with the possibilities. If the map was real, it meant these beings had traveled across the galaxy. It meant humanity's future might not be bound only to Earth. The two of them worked together, copying as much of the map as they could. Their hands moved quickly, but their eyes returned often to the sarcophagus. It seemed to glow brighter with each moment they spent inside the chamber, as if it was aware of their presence. Suddenly the floor beneath them trembled. A low vibration spread across the room. The statues in the corridor outside gave off faint sparks of light along their joints. The workers cried out in fear, some rushing toward the entrance. "Do not panic," Amir shouted. His voice echoed against the walls. But even he felt his heart leap in his chest. The chamber was changing, as if their presence had awakened something long asleep. The stars above shifted one last time. A single bright point appeared at the center of the dome, glowing stronger than all the others. Slowly it expanded, forming a shape, an eye of light staring down at them. Lena gripped Amir's arm tightly. "It knows we are here." Amir looked back at the sarcophagus. The glowing lines across its surface pulsed faster, like a heartbeat rising. He realized with both awe and fear that the sealed being inside was not dead. It was waiting. The Chamber of Stars was no mere tomb or temple. It was a message left across ages, a signal to whoever found it that the story of humanity was linked to something far beyond Earth. And now that the explorers had entered, the chamber had responded. Amir knew at that moment that their discovery would not stay silent. The door they had opened was not just the entrance to a hidden room. It was the beginning of a chain of events that would reach far into the future. And deep within the sarcophagus, something stirred. The glow from the sarcophagus pulsed brighter with each passing second. The Chamber of Stars shimmered as if the walls themselves were alive. Amir and Lena stood frozen, their breaths shallow, while the workers near the entrance whispered prayers in fear. The statues along the corridor suddenly moved. At first it was only a small shift, the faint grind of metal joints awakening after centuries. Then, one by one, the tall guardians straightened, stepping forward with slow, heavy movements. Their eyes glowed with a pale blue light, casting eerie reflections against the walls. "They are not statues," Lena whispered. "They are machines." Amir's heart pounded, but he held his ground. "Guardians," he said quietly. "They were left here to protect this place." The machines raised their arms. Their voices rumbled in unison, deep and mechanical, echoing through the chamber. "Who enters the sealed hall of the Pharaohs? Speak." The workers fell to the ground, trembling, but Amir stepped forward. He bowed his head slightly, showing respect. "We are explorers. We seek knowledge, not destruction. We come as students, not as thieves." The guardians stood still, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The silence stretched long, broken only by the hum of the sarcophagus. Then one of the machines stepped forward, towering over Amir. "Knowledge is not given. It is earned. To enter, you must prove your worth." Lena looked up at the dome above. The stars had shifted again, forming strange patterns. "Amir," she said softly. "I think they want us to solve something." The central guardian raised its arm, and the stars rearranged into broken lines. Constellations scattered into pieces, waiting to be aligned. "Restore the sky," the guardian commanded. Amir and Lena quickly moved to the center of the chamber. The ceiling stretched high, but the glowing constellations responded when they touched the controls near the sarcophagus. With every press of their hands, the stars shifted across the dome. "It is a puzzle," Lena said, her voice tight with focus. "We must rebuild the constellations." Amir guided her, pointing to the stars he recognized. "There. That is Orion's belt. Move those 3 points together. And here Sirius must be placed to the east." Slowly, carefully, the broken patterns began to form familiar constellations. Each time they completed one, the sarcophagus pulsed with stronger light, as if approving their progress. The workers watched from the entrance, their fear mixing with wonder as the sky above slowly became whole again. Finally, Lena placed the last star. The dome glowed bright, the constellations shining in perfect order. A deep vibration shook the chamber, and the guardians lowered their arms. The central guardian spoke again. "You have restored the sky. You may witness what was sealed." The sarcophagus responded instantly. Its glowing lines spread wide, splitting apart like rivers of light. With a soft hiss, the lid slid open. Inside lay not a mummy wrapped in cloth, but a figure unlike anything the explorers had seen. The being was tall, its skin pale gold, wearing armor that shimmered like sunlight on water. Its face resembled that of a human but was sharper, more regal, with eyes closed in endless sleep. Lena gasped. "It is not human." Amir's voice trembled with awe. "This is the one the pharaohs called a god." The guardians stepped back, bowing their heads toward the sarcophagus. The being's chest rose slowly, then fell, then rose again. A faint breath escaped its lips. Its eyes opened, glowing with a soft golden light. The chamber fell into silence. Even the workers who had been whispering stopped, their fear swallowed by shock. The being sat upright with graceful movement. His gaze swept across the chamber before settling on Amir and Lena. His voice was deep, calm, yet carried great power. "Who wakes Artem?" Amir's throat was dry, but he forced himself to speak. "We are seekers of truth. We uncovered the sealed door. We did not come to steal, only to learn." Artem studied him for a long moment, then turned his gaze toward the glowing dome. "The stars remain. Time has passed, but the universe endures. Tell me, children of Earth, how long has my rest been?" Amir's mind raced. "Thousands of years. Since the time of the pharaohs." Aratem's expression grew heavy, almost sorrowful. Then the war is long past. My people, they are gone. Lena stepped closer, her fear softened by curiosity. Who are you? I am Aratem, he answered. Once I walked among the pharaohs. I came from beyond the sky to guide, to protect, to prepare. But enemies from the dark followed. To shield your kind, I sealed myself away, leaving the guardians to watch until the time was right. The words struck Amir deeply. The ancient stories of gods descending from the heavens were not mere myths. They were fragments of memory, passed through ages until they became legend. Aratem stood, towering over them, yet his presence was calm rather than threatening. Humanity has awakened me. That means you are ready to hear the truth. But beware. The enemy that once hunted me will one day return. When they do, your people must stand strong, not as servants, but as guardians of your own world. The chamber of stars glowed brighter, casting light over Amir, Lena, and the workers. In that moment they realized they were no longer only archaeologists searching for history. They were witnesses to something far greater, an ancient bond between Earth and the stars. And though Aratem spoke with calm dignity, the weight of his warning hung heavy in the air. The golden being stood tall in the center of the chamber. His armor glowed faintly in the light of the star dome, and his presence filled the room with quiet power. Amir and Lena felt small before him, yet at the same time they sensed no danger. The guardians lined the corridor behind them, silent once more, their task now complete. Aratem looked at the humans with calm eyes that carried the weight of ages. When I walked this land, the pharaohs called me a god, he said. His voice was steady, each word echoing like a distant bell. But I was no god. I was a traveler from the stars. I guided your kings, helped them shape the first great kingdoms, and gave them wisdom to build monuments that would last for ages. Amir's lips parted in awe. Then the pyramids, the temples, they were built with your knowledge. Aratem inclined his head slightly. The pharaohs were wise and strong. I did not give them everything. I only offered guidance, for the greatness of humanity must rise from within. The people of Earth had courage, determination, and imagination. With those, they raised wonders of stone. I only helped them see what they were capable of. Lena looked at the dome above. The stars still shimmered, and the moving map showed distant systems. Why did you hide here? She asked. Aratem's face darkened. Because of the enemy. They were not like my people. They came from the void, hungry for conquest. They sought to enslave or destroy all they touched. When they followed us to Earth, I knew humanity was not ready to face them. So I sealed myself in this chamber, leaving behind guardians to protect the door. I slept, waiting for the day when your people would be ready to understand. The words filled Amir with both pride and dread. If Aratem was right, humanity had been spared for thousands of years, protected by silence and secrecy. But that protection could not last forever. What happened to the other pharaohs? Amir asked softly. Aratem's golden eyes turned toward the workers standing near the entrance. They swore an oath. They kept the secret, burying this chamber deep beneath their tombs so no invader would find it. They understood the truth: humanity must learn to rise on its own, not by leaning on those from the stars. Amir lowered his gaze, feeling the weight of that responsibility. Humanity had always wondered if it was alone in the universe. Now he knew the answer. But the knowledge came with a price, the duty to protect Earth. Lena asked the question that burned inside her. Why awaken now? Why allow us to open the door? Aratem studied her closely, then said, because the stars called to me. I felt the touch of your hand on the symbols. The old lock was made to answer not power, but courage. Only when humans stepped forward without fear would the chamber respond. That is why you stand here now. The workers listened in silence, some still trembling but unable to leave. They, too, felt the gravity of Artem's words. This was no story from dusty scrolls. This was living truth. Amir stepped closer. If the enemy returns, how can we fight them? We are far behind in knowledge, far behind in strength. Artem placed his hand on the sarcophagus, and the dome above shifted again. The map of the stars brightened, showing paths through space, strange worlds, and ancient battles. This chamber holds the memory of my people, he explained. Not weapons, for you must build your own, but wisdom maps, science, and warnings. These are gifts to guide humanity when the time comes. But remember this, if you rely only on us, you will fail. The strength of humanity lies not in borrowed power, but in the spirit to fight for its own future. Lena's eyes filled with wonder. Then this is the Pharaoh's true legacy, she said softly. Not treasure, not gold, but knowledge of the stars. Artem gave a small nod. The Pharaohs understood. They ruled not with greed, but with vision. They looked beyond their time, preparing the way for you. The chamber was silent for a long moment. The workers, Amir and Lena, all stood in the glow of the star map, feeling as if the weight of the entire universe had been placed in their hands. Finally, Artem spoke again, his voice calm yet firm. I will not stay long. My body is weak after so many centuries of rest. But I will leave you with the guidance you need. Carry this truth to your people, but be wise. Not all will accept it. Some will fear it. Others will try to twist it for their own gain. Guard it carefully, for what you know now could shape the future of Earth. Amir felt a chill run down his spine. He knew Artem was right. The world was not ready for such knowledge. Yet at the same time, the truth could not be hidden forever. Lena whispered, almost to herself, we thought we were searching for the past. But we have found the future. Artem closed his eyes for a moment, as though listening to something far away. When he opened them again, the golden glow burned brighter. The enemy will come again. Perhaps not tomorrow, perhaps not for years, but they will return. When that day comes, humanity must stand not as children, but as guardians of their world. The chamber's light dimmed slightly, leaving only the steady glow of the sarcophagus. Amir and Lena exchanged a glance, both knowing that their lives had changed forever. They had uncovered not just history, but destiny. And as they looked up at the stars above, Amir thought of the words Artem had spoken. The Pharaohs had left behind more than monuments. They had left a warning, a promise, and a legacy that would echo into the future of all mankind. The chamber felt heavy with silence after Artem's words. The golden being stood still, his glowing eyes watching Amir, Lena, and the workers. Everyone sensed that something more was yet to come. Artem raised his hand, and the star dome above shifted once again. The bright map of galaxies faded, replaced by the image of a single dark shape. It looked like a great shadow drifting across space. Its edges were sharp, its body jagged like broken stone, and its size dwarfed everything around it. This, Artem said, his voice calm but steady, is the enemy I spoke of. They are called the Creel. They travel not to build or share, but to consume. They hunger for resources, for energy, for worlds. Long ago, they followed my people across the stars, and when they found Earth, I knew your kind was not ready to stand against them. That is why I sealed myself here. That is why I slept. Amir stared at the image of the Creel ship. It looked like no machine he had ever seen. It seemed alive, as if made from dark stone and fire. And they are still out there, he asked. Artem's eyes dimmed slightly. Yes. They never stop. They move slowly across the void, spreading their reach. They may not remember Earth now, but one day they will. The question is, when that day comes, will humanity be ready? The workers began whispering nervously. Some looked afraid, others angry. Lena stepped forward, her voice strong despite the unease in her heart. If this enemy is so powerful, how can we even hope to resist them? Artem placed his hand against the sarcophagus, and once more the dome shifted. This time, glowing symbols and diagrams filled the air, surrounding the humans with streams of light. They showed strange machines, towering cities, and energy that flowed like rivers. You will not resist by becoming like them, Artem said. You must rise as yourselves. These memories are not weapons, but guidance. They will teach you how to harness the strength of your own world, how to use the gifts already hidden in the earth. If you follow this path, you will not be helpless. Amir's heart beat faster. He saw in the symbols a chance for humanity to leap forward, to reach the stars. But he also saw the danger. Knowledge like this could divide nations, spark greed, and cause conflict before the true enemy even arrived. Lena seemed to sense the same. She asked, what if humanity fights itself with this knowledge? What if we turn against one another before the Creel even come? Artem's golden eyes locked on hers. That is the test. My people failed it long ago. We were divided, and the Creel grew stronger while we quarreled. Humanity must learn from our mistake. That is why I waited. That is why the Pharaohs chose to hide this place. They trusted that one day your kind would be wise enough to carry the burden. The chamber grew quiet again. Amir could hear the steady breathing of the workers. Some of them looked uncertain, as if they wished they had never stepped inside the sealed door. But others had fire in their eyes, a spark of pride at the thought that humanity had been chosen for such a destiny. Suddenly, the dome flickered. The image of the stars wavered, and for a moment a faint red glow pulsed in one corner of the map. Artem's head turned sharply, his expression tightening. What is that? Amir asked quickly. Artem's voice grew low. It seems the enemy stirs. A signal has been sent. Perhaps my awakening has drawn their gaze. Fear rippled through the chamber. The workers began to shift nervously, whispering among themselves. Lena clenched her fists. Does that mean they know Earth is here? Not yet, Artem said. But the silence that protected this world may soon end. If the Creel are indeed searching, then the time for preparation has begun. Amir stepped closer. Then we must act. You said the knowledge here is guidance, not weapons. But perhaps that is what we need most. Something to protect Earth if they come. Artem looked at him with calm patience. Do not mistake wisdom for weakness. The greatest defense is not always a weapon. Sometimes it is unity, sometimes invention, sometimes courage. You must decide which path humanity will walk. If you only reach for war, you may destroy yourselves before the Creel even arrive. Amir swallowed hard, his thoughts torn. He had always believed humanity's strength came from progress, from building machines and advancing technology. But Artem's words reminded him that power alone was not enough. Without unity, without wisdom, the world could collapse under its own weight. Lena placed a hand on Amir's shoulder. We can't carry this alone, she said softly. We need to share this with others, but carefully. If the wrong people learn too quickly, they will twist it. Artem nodded. That is your task now. I will give you what I can, but soon my body will fail. The rest will be in your hands. Remember this, the Creel are not unstoppable. They can be resisted. They can be defeated. But the strength to do so must come from humanity itself. The chamber lights dimmed once more, and the star dome faded back to silence. The workers stood quietly, their eyes filled with both fear and wonder. For the first time in their lives, they understood that the world was part of something much larger, something that stretched beyond the earth and into the endless night of the universe. Amir looked at Lena, and she looked back at him. Both felt the same weight in their hearts. The sealed door of the Pharaohs had not only revealed the past, it had opened a path into a dangerous and uncertain future. And now they knew the truth. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the hidden enemy was waiting. The chamber stood silent after Aratem's warning. The golden being's glow had dimmed, and his once strong voice now sounded faint. It was clear to everyone that his time was almost at an end. Amir stepped forward, his heart heavy but steady. "You have given us more than we expected," he said. "We came here looking for the past, but you have shown us the future. Before you go, is there anything more you wish us to know?" Aratem's eyes, though fading, still shone with calm light. "Yes. Do not let fear guide you. The Creel are strong, but their greatest power is not their weapons. It is the terror they spread. Many worlds fell because fear divided them before the battle even began. If you remember this, you will not fall as they did." Lena's chest tightened at his words. She thought of her own world, a place already divided by borders, rivalries, and pride. Could humans really set aside their differences in time? She wanted to believe it was possible, yet doubt pressed against her mind. Aratem must have sensed her struggle. He turned his gaze to her and spoke softly. "Even the smallest light can guide many through darkness. One voice can begin unity, if it is brave enough to speak. Do not underestimate what you carry inside." The golden glow around him began to flicker. His tall figure looked less solid, as though the air itself was swallowing him. The workers stood in awe, not knowing what to say. Amir's voice trembled as he asked, "What will happen to you now?" Aratem raised his head proudly, though his body was fading. "I will return to the stars. My task here is complete. But remember, I was not your savior. I was only a guardian, keeping the knowledge safe until you were ready. From this moment on, humanity must walk its own path." With those final words, Aratem placed his hand on the sarcophagus. A warm golden wave spread through the chamber, lighting every symbol, every carving, every star above. Then, like a breath carried away by the wind, his form dissolved into pure light. The light swirled upward into the dome, scattering into the image of the endless sky. And then he was gone. Silence filled the chamber. No one moved. The workers looked at Amir and Lena, waiting for guidance. Lena was the first to speak. "He trusted us. He gave us this gift, not to keep hidden forever, but to use wisely. We cannot bury it again." Amir nodded slowly. "But we cannot rush either. If the world is told everything too fast, fear and greed will destroy what he gave us. We must be careful, step by step." The workers whispered among themselves, some agreeing, some fearful. One of them, an older man with worn hands, finally spoke. "If this enemy is real, then we do not have the luxury of waiting too long. Our children deserve a chance to live without that shadow over them." Amir placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "You are right. That is why we will not bury the truth. But we must protect it until the time is right. When we return above, we will begin to share this knowledge with those who can guide wisely, not those who would twist it for power." Lena looked around the chamber one last time. The stars on the dome had dimmed, but she could still feel the weight of their presence. She whispered, "This place is no longer just a tomb. It is a promise." The group left the chamber in silence, their footsteps echoing through the long halls of stone. When they pushed open the sealed door, the desert sun blinded their eyes. The sky stretched wide above them, blue and endless. It felt different now, as if the whole earth itself was waiting for their choice. That night, Amir stood outside the excavation camp. The stars glittered above the desert, the same stars that Aratem had shown them in the dome. He wondered how many of those stars still held life, and how many had already fallen to the Creel. Lena joined him quietly. "You're thinking about them, aren't you?" she asked. "Yes," Amir admitted. "But I'm also thinking about us. Aratem believed we could be ready. I don't know if he was right. But I want to try." Lena smiled faintly. Then that is enough. Trying is the beginning. The workers gathered around a small fire, their faces lit by the glow. Though weary, their eyes no longer carried only fear. There was determination there, a quiet strength born from what they had seen. Amir raised his voice so all could hear. We have been given something rare. Not just knowledge of the past, but a warning of the future. We must not waste it. We will return to the world with this truth, but we must guard it with wisdom. Humanity's future begins here, with us. The fire crackled, and for a moment, everyone felt warmth in the cool desert night. Far above, the stars shone silently, as they had for ages. Somewhere in the endless dark, the creel moved, slow and patient. But now Earth was no longer blind. Humanity had seen the truth, and though the path ahead was uncertain, they carried the spark of unity and courage. Amir looked at Lena, then back at the sky. The sealed door of the Pharaohs had been opened, and with it, the first step into a future where humanity would rise not as victims, but as guardians of their own world. And in that vast night, under the eternal stars, humanity's dawn began.